Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today we are talking about all of the books that I read in May. I have been slowly slipping into almost a reading slump, although I did still read 12 books in the month of May, which does sound like a lot, but usually my minimum is around 15, and I was reading these 12 books, but just feeling like I'm about to tip over into a reading slump. And I think that means I'm gonna have to significantly change what I'm reading for the next month to get excited about reading again, because still now I'm just not picking stuff up. But I did still read some really fun books in the month of May, and it was very much focused either on literary fiction on the one side and then also cozy romantic fantasy as well. So we'll see which ones I liked the best. I think probably we will start this video off with the worst books that I read in the month of May, and then we will work my way up to the best books that I read. But first, before we get started, I just want to say thank you so much to my Patreons. Thank you so much for everything you do to support me and support this channel and help this channel grow and make it into the wonderful small community that we have over on Patreon. I absolutely love you guys. If you're interested in checking out my Patreon, there are some exclusive videos over there, and I just recently uploaded a video in which I went to charity shop book shopping, which is pretty fun, so you can go and check that out over on the Patreon. But that being said, let's talk about the worst book that I read in the month of May, and that was unfortunately Odd Spirits by S.T. Gibson. This one is a short novella. It's kind of I think it's a prequel to their other book, which was Evocation, which I thought was just okay, but I basically got this audiobook for free and it was quite short and I just wanted to listen to something while I was doing something really boring. So I just listened to this very quickly, and I have to say I wasn't that impressed. It was just kind of a little bit boring to me. I think obviously I would have liked this a lot more if I enjoyed the characters from the full-length book, but I didn't love it, and I think because I just didn't think that the characters in that main book were that interesting. So really, my fault for picking this one up. I probably should have known that I wouldn't love this. But these are a fantasy romance kind of series, and they are set in the modern day. It's like an urban fantasy type story. You have kind of an astrologist and an occult expert and a medium and all of these different kind of occultist types of jobs in this world. And you're following this couple as they're basically kind of trying to survive their first year of marriage. But honestly, I was just thinking, I just don't think these two people should be together. One of their biggest issues is communication, and I just kept thinking the entire time that they just are not made for each other. It wasn't very cute and romantic, especially because they're already together and have been married, and you're okay, why did you rush into this marriage though? I'm not seeing any of the love, you know what I mean? So unfortunately, didn't end up loving this one. So this was hovering around 2 stars for me. Next up, we have a book that I've had on my TBR for ages, and I feel bad that I've only just got to it now because I actually got it as an ARC, and that is Madwoman by Chelsea Biker. This is a contemporary lit kind of thrillery. It's a domestic thriller, I think. I'm not 100% sure because I don't usually read that many domestic thrillers, so I don't know if this fully fits in that category, but that's the impression I got. This is all about a woman who is a mother, and she basically is living this seemingly very perfect life, and one day gets a letter from a prison, and her past kind of becomes all up on her all of a sudden, and she has to kind of fight to hide her dark and dangerous past from her squeaky clean new kind of image. There were parts of this that I actually really enjoyed. I enjoyed the kind of this character's relationship to wellness and food and fitness, and using the body and health as a proxy for kind of being slightly disturbed in your mind, and not working on yourself kind of in therapy, but just working on yourself in the gym. I quite liked that and how that was really explored. I did not love the thriller mystery component of this because it felt very predictable, and also everything you'd built up for the character at the beginning about her being a very suspicious and quite shrewd person was then kind of thrown out the window when she just decides to make decisions that she wouldn't normally and trust people she probably shouldn't and wouldn't have. And I think that's a bit of a cheap way to do a mystery, to then have twists and reveals that ended up not being very twisty and revealy. I don't want to spoil anything about this because in case you do want to read it, so I'm staying very very vague. But I liked the way this was written in quite an engaging way. It was just like, it felt a bit slow and a bit ploddy, especially when you kind of know what's going to happen. But still, I'd give this about 2.5 out of 5 stars for me. So kind of in the middle, wasn't too bad, but I'm pretty picky with like domestic thrillers specifically. I only love them when they are really good, really surprising and very different, and that one unfortunately wasn't. Next up we have a book that I honestly don't know how to rate, and I don't know if I just wasn't paying enough attention to this one. I'm gonna put it in like the 3-star range, and that is Spring by Ali Smith. I really hoped I would love this book because it is just one of the most beautiful books I've ever seen, and also I already own Winter, which is like the, I don't know what order these are supposed to be in, and probably I should have checked because I did check and I thought this was the first one and it's not. It's like the third one. Apparently it doesn't matter what order you read the seasons in. I think maybe it did matter a little bit to me because I just felt quite lost with this book, and like lost is the only way that I can really describe how I was reading this, because I do think that this was written well. I just kind of went through processes of either not understanding what was happening or not enjoying it. So, but then there'd be parts of it that were really beautiful, and when you can kind of see like the weave behind it kind of coming together, and I was like, oh wait, no, I'm getting it, I kind of understand what's happening. And then it would take you off on another tangent and I'd go, oh no, maybe I don't know what your point is. Not that there's like confusing in terms of like a very complicated plot. It's more like confusing in terms of what am I supposed to be pulling from this? Right? What is the main message that this author is trying to get across? And it just left me a little bit lost. I did listen to the audiobook of this and I didn't read it physically. I think probably I should have read it physically because I probably missed some like key bits or something. Like, I do find I enjoy books more when I read them physically, or at least I enjoy more complicated books more when I read them physically. I can listen like quite more passively as an audiobook. So I definitely will read another Ali Smith. I'm not really telling you the plot of this one because it's very, very hard to describe. If you like literary fiction, if you like stories that are doing something a little bit complicated and have this like wider view, I do think you'll really like this, and I could see why people would really love this. But for me, it's gonna go right in the middle with a 3 stars. Next up, we are in the 3.5 star category, and we have a few books hovering around this area. Which one shall I talk about first? Maybe I'll talk about the book that I don't have physically first. So this one is Lost Souls Meet Under a Full Moon, and I've rated this about 3.5. I initially rated this a little bit higher, but I think like on reflection and kind of looking at the spread of what I've read over the month, I'd pull this down to like a 3.5 is kind of where I would end up with it. This one is by the same author as Lonely Castle in the Mirror, which I absolutely loved. And this one does have very similar kind of atmosphere and tone, but it's just the way the story was written I didn't love as much, and like especially at the plotting and kind of like the lack of a like forward thrust and mystery through the plot that Lonely Castle in the Mirror definitely has. But if you really liked that book, then you still will enjoy how this is written. This is quite a slow and reflective story, but it is still got that magical realism twist. So in this story, you're following a go-between who is this young man who can basically set up a meeting between someone who's living and someone who has died. And there are a few like strict rules that have to be followed, and then he can set up this meeting, and you have like just as long as the moon is in the sky or something along those lines. So the beginning of this story kind of works in a short story format. You're following a different person every time, and then the latter half of the book is more focused on the go-between himself and his family and his kind of story. And I really liked when they did come all together, because previously to that it just focused too much on these individual stories, and then it felt very formulaic. And I will give you a warning as well, I don't really like Before the Coffee Gets Cold, and this really gave me Before the Coffee Gets Cold vibes. So if that is one of your favourite books, you'll probably really, really like the Lost Souls Meet Under the Full Moon, or whatever the title is of this, because it really has that same reflective kind of focus on grief and reconciliation. I actually would say I did prefer how this was written compared to Before the Coffee Gets Cold, because I felt like that was a bit stark. This is a bit more descriptive. And like I said, I enjoyed how everything came together at the end, and there was more of a, like, it felt more like a novel rather than a collection of short stories like Before the Coffee Gets Cold. So this one is hovering around 3.5 stars. The next one that's also hovering around 3.5 stars is our book club book, and that is Ali and Nino. This one I think was quite a successful pick for our book club because we actually had a ton of people who were reading it this month, which makes me always really happy. So this is a book that we read from Azerbaijan, and you are following Ali and also Nino in this story. This is a romantic story, and it is set just at the beginning of the First World War in Azerbaijan, which is obviously right on the border between Europe and Asia, and that is a big kind of conflict within this story because Ali himself is a Muslim boy and then Nino is a Georgian European girl, and they love each other very much and they meet at school, but you're following them throughout this period of conflict. I think everyone had really good takes on this story, and I do feel like I ended up somewhere in the middle. A lot of people said they found it quite difficult to connect to because of lots of the historical context was like kind of difficult to follow at times, and the romance wasn't quite strong enough. And I do agree with that in terms of the love story. I wish we got a bit more there, a bit more maybe character growth as they were growing up and kind of falling in love. It felt a little bit one note, the love story specifically. But the thing I did love the most is how much I learned about Azerbaijan in this book. There is so much information here, and just through Ali's eyes, you really feel like you know what it would have been like to grow up in this time and in this place. And he has such a love for the town in which he has grown up. So it just comes across so strongly in this book, and I really enjoyed it, but I wouldn't say that it's going to be a new favourite of mine just because I want some more emotional gut punch, you know. But there was definitely such an interesting read. So that is a 3.5 stars for me. The next 3.5 stars read I also listened to as an audiobook, and that is Beautyland. I've seen this one everywhere. It's been quite hyped up. Everyone's been absolutely loving this book, and I have to say I did enjoy it, but I didn't absolutely love it. This is basically a coming of age story about a girl who is an alien. She is born at the moment that Voyager 1 is launched into space, and she has been sent to Earth in the body of this child to send back messages to her home planet about the way that humans live. She's kind of on this undefined mission of discovery. I really liked this main character. I especially enjoyed, I would have to say, the earlier parts of this book that felt more teenage and coming of age, which is unusual for me, but I just felt like her personality came across really strongly, and I enjoyed her perception about different things and how sensitive she was, and her growing up with her mum and their relationship. I do think that the interesting kind of take, it did tail off for me at the end. I was less and less interested, especially in the back half of the book. If you're thinking that this is sci-fi, especially from the cover or obviously how it's being shelved and talked about, I would say it's definitely not. The sci-fi aspect of this is incredibly minimal. It's very much a literary fiction story about this girl who is kind of yearning for a place to call home. I just think it lent a bit too far sometimes on just this is observations about life in the universe and humanity, rather than it being a novel about characters with plot progression and people changing and learning and growing as much. There was a bit of that, but it felt very observational. So there was beautiful aspects to this, but not enough to push it up to a 4-star for me. This is still in that 3.5 zone. Next up though, getting closer to the 4 stars, but maybe if we're using quarter stars, I'd say this is a 3.75. We have Under the Eye of the Big Bird. I finally finished my reading the International Booker Prize long list just in time, honestly. If you saw that last vlog, I was really pushing and getting that in under the wire, but I did read the last couple of books for that vlog. You can go and watch that as well. Managed to get my predictions in and everything, and this one I ended up rating at 3.75. This is another sci-fi leaning book. This one definitely is more of a sci-fi dystopian than Beautyland, 100%. This book is set in the distant future where humanity is on the verge of collapse or has kind of already collapsed, and you're following these different societies in, I think it is still based in Japan. You're jumping around all over the place, but everyone is being kind of monitored by these beings called the Mother or the Mothers. And as you're reading this, you're just like desperately trying to figure out what is going on. It's really intriguing. I really liked the puzzle kind of aspect of this story. I do think there was a couple chapters just at the end where they kind of just tell you everything, and I felt like I was enjoying much more putting it together myself. I don't think that they should have like not done that, but I just maybe think in a different way, because a lot of the earlier part of the book was so intriguing, so it slightly lost me at the end. And also, since I have read this, like in the few weeks since I've read this, it hasn't like stuck with me. I'm not like thinking, oh, I need to like recommend this book to people, like people need to absolutely read this. Although I did enjoy my process of reading it and did rate it, like rank it pretty high, I think, within my like International Booker Prize shortlist ranking, because it was an enjoyable read to me, but it's just not going to be one of those ones that really, really sticks with me. Next up, let's talk about one that was a 4-star read. I actually read this when I was on holiday, which was wonderful. I went to Lisbon for a little short break and it was absolutely delightful. And the book that I read while I was there is An Artist of the Floating World. I'm really getting there with my Kazuo Ishiguro kind of challenge where I'm reading every single Kazuo Ishiguro book. I think I have one more left. It's called The Unconsoled and it's absolutely massive and I'm really scared to read it. But I really enjoyed this one, actually. I was a bit nervous about it because I don't think it actually has the best reviews, but this I rated 4 stars. This is a really interesting story about this older Japanese man who is retiring from his work as an artist, and he's living in this house, but it is set in 1948 as Japan is recovering from the war. And so while he is kind of like retiring and living this like quiet life, and he's trying to help his daughter get married, he's also doing a lot of reflecting on the time in the war and also like the youth of today. And it's got that like classic Kazuo Ishiguro feel about you're missing something within the character, like there's something that they're kind of not saying, or there's something mysterious going on. And I just really enjoyed this. I love any book that has things going on with memory and how you're remembering things, and Kazuo Ishiguro has a lot of that, or like he does things from different people's perspectives that kind of have a warped view of the world. And it makes you question like what is really true. So I ended up really, really enjoying this. This is a historical literary fiction. Would highly recommend. Okay, and then the book that I read, which was, I'm glad that I did get a chance to read it because it actually won the International Booker Prize, and that is Heartland by Banu Mushtaq. And this is a selection of short stories. There's 12 short stories in this, and they are all focused on women from southern India, from Karnataka. And I actually think that they're written over the period of about 30 years. I thought they were a lot more connected than that when I read this book, but I really enjoyed these short stories. And honestly, on the surface of it, this shouldn't have been a book that I really, really loved, because firstly, I don't usually love short stories. Secondly, I don't love stories in which women are suffering constantly, and there is a lot of suffering going on in this book, but there was something about it that just really captured me, and like when I was reading it, I really found it difficult to put down. It has such a mix of very kind of straightforward writing with the occasional just like beautifully poetic line, and I really enjoyed how the translation was done, and there's a translating note at the end that explains it, and I just really appreciated how the translator had worked with the actual language that was there and kept in a lot that really give you this like strong image of these people and this time and this place. If you're looking for emotional stories about strong women against the odds, not just women, but it usually is focusing on women's stories in this, then definitely pick this up. I do want to warn you going in though that this is like definitely covering heavy and difficult topics. At times I was, slightly wanting to put it down because of how heavy it was, but I think beautifully handled, and I'm rating this like a 4.25. I think like I'm putting it above the 4. So I was actually very, very pleased that this won, although it was a bit of a surprise winner, to be honest, and I think people were shocked, including myself. I was pretty shocked. So that is Heartland. Okay, next up, let's get to the best of the best, and this month the best of the best was clearly romantic, cozy fantasy. These were my favourite books this month, and obviously these two are in a series together. I'll talk about those in a minute. But I firstly read, finally, Emily Wilde's Compendium of Lost Tales. This is I would say a light academia, cozy romance story, but I would say cozy with kind of like an asterisk, because it is cozy, but there's definitely still stakes. You know that everything's going to be fine and work out in the end, but it's not like adventure light. I would say there is always a plot, there's always a mystery, there's always something to figure out in this book, or in these books, because this is actually the third book, the third installment of the Emily Wilde kind of collection. I don't know what they're calling them. Maybe just Emily Wilde books. I thought it was really, really cute. I don't want to tell you any of the plot, obviously, because if you have not read these books, then I want you to go and read them, because they are some of my favourites. They're just like such a warm and cozy hug, and I love them. I love how they stick true to these characters. Like, Emily hasn't become this kind of like pampered or like very like pleasant person, because, you know, lots of things have been resolved for her. She's stayed true to herself, which is like a quite prickly and difficult woman, and I love her. And I also liked that we saw a different side, or like a more fae side to Wendell in this as well. I just love that relationship, and it's so cute, and I'm just glad that like a lot of the tension of this book isn't about creating fake stakes for the romantic side. It's all about like discovering more about this world, which I love. I love the footnotes. I love the light academia side. It feels so real to me. A lot of the kind of footnotes that I read, I'm just like, the detail in here and the care that's taken is a lot, and I just really appreciate that. So that is Emily Wilde's Compendium of Lost Tales, and I'm giving that a 4.5, so not quite a 5. It's not my favourite of the collection, but absolutely loved it. And then finally, let's talk about these ones. The Paladin, what are they called? Paladin of Steel collection, are they? The Saints of Steel, that's the collection. And the series starts with this one, which is Paladin's Grace. I absolutely loved it. And then the second book is Paladin's Strength, which I also loved. Honestly, which one did I like better? I think perhaps maybe I liked the second one better. But basically in these books, you are in a high fantasy world where there are these paladins of steel, and their god has died. It happens in the first page of the first book, so it's not a spoiler. They are berserker paladins, so they are then, once their god has died, at risk of like going into these rages and like going berserk. But there is only a few of them left, and they are trying to just live this quiet life. And in this first book, you meet our first paladin, who is Stephen, and he meets this perfumer who's only really interested in making a gorgeous perfume, and they meet each other, and it's very sweet, but also both of them have their own thing going on. And also there is someone out there cutting off people's heads, so there also is a mystery component to this story. And actually that gets a lot darker than you would think, maybe, because I am describing these as very cozy, fluffy romance. It's very, very sweet. But the actual mystery component does there is chopping off heads. There is like, at some points it gets described and it gets a little bit gristly, but they are really, really, really fun, and I liked these two as main characters. But I think I preferred our second couple even more. Firstly, I love like the plus size representation of the main female character in this one, and the fact that she is basically a runaway nun, and it's so much fun because you're following a different paladin in this one, who is Stephen's best friend in the first one. So it's all kind of, it doesn't really connect that much, but it's better to read them probably in order. And this one, you can't really tell, and I didn't realize going in, but this one is a lot longer, or it definitely felt a lot longer. It was a much more meaty story, and the stakes did feel much higher. Although the love story was like still at the center, I would say a lot of the mystery is a carryover from the first book as well. So you kind of have the extra layer of what the hell's going on kind of in a wider sense. So I really, really enjoyed this one because the mystery was even more intense, and it felt like it did get resolved by the end of this. And I was very surprised with how it was going. It felt like really high stakes. And I also just loved this couple so, so much. They are so, so cute. There was more like banter in this one, I would say. Like, this one is very like, they're so sweet and they're so angsty and they're so in their own head. And then this one is like, yeah, we both know that we like each other, but like, and like they're kind of just joking around about it, and it's really sweet. So absolutely loved both of these books. Can't wait to read the third one. which is Paladin's Hope, I think is the next one, which might be an LGBT one. I'm thinking that's like the next Paladin is a gay man, so I'm hoping that we're going to get a gay love story in the next one. Or I say the next Paladin, he's like the one who's best friends with the one in this one, so like, that's where I'm thinking it's going. So we shall see. I'm absolutely loving these, and honestly these are what is inspiring my reading for this month, for June, because I have just, like I said, not been reading that much at all, and I really want to kind of get that started again and really start reading again, but I think I just have to ease myself in and just do cozy romantic fantasy. So might read both of the next Paladin books that I have, and then see what else is on my shelf to do kind of like cozy romantic stories. But if you've got recommendations for me, please tell me. There's a book recently that's like dragged you out of a slump, even if it's not cozy romance or like a fantasy story, just like something that has been like really gripping, really amazing for you. Please tell me. Or like definitely something that's not too much of a thinker, because I just feel like I've just not got a lot of brain space at the minute, to be honest. You can probably tell if you're like eagle-eyed. I've posted less videos in the last month than I normally do. I've just not been as inspired in lots of different ways. So we're going to try and get back on track, but let me know, please, book recommendations as always. And also just life recommendations. If you, like, I'm feeling a bit slumpy, not just in reading, just in life in general. So if you've got life recommendations, then please tell me that as well. Honestly, I think a lot of it is like a come down from my holiday that I had so much fun, and then I just like have a big dip afterwards. But I think that is everything that I wanted to say. I wanted to tell you about the 12 books that I managed to read in the month of May, and here's to reading at least 12 in the month of June. I'll be filming and posting my TBR video very, very soon as well, so get your recommendations in the comments, because that will affect what goes on the TBR. But other than that, please remember to like this video and leave a comment and subscribe if you're not already, and you can go and check out my Patreon link as well if you're interested in extra videos, and I will talk to you all again soon. Bye!